Hey, friends, today is going to be a lot of strategic work. And so it's less about the practical exercises. Today, more than anything else, you just need a blank sheet of paper because I think a lot of you are going to end up with a big to-do list at the end of this session. So for those of you who are like, oh, I needed some stuff to work on, you are in the right place. For those of you who are like, oh, no, I don't have any time to work on anything, I warn you, you're probably going to have some stuff to work on by the end of this session. So get used to changing some of those expectations as we walk through this over the next couple hours. Okay, I want to talk about and just sort of introduce this concept by way of a story. The first time that I had the aha epiphany of the power of brand authority was at a conference called Catalyst. It's a conference that I performed magic at. I was still entertaining and touring as a professional magician. This was probably 2006, I think, was the first time. For those of you unfamiliar with Catalyst, it was a conference that was around for about 15 to 20 years, serving leaders of all kinds, like business leaders, education leaders, church leaders, all types of different organizations would send their leaders to this leadership conference. It was in Gwinnett Arena, right outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Average attendance of the conference was around 10 to 12,000 people. Amazing communicators, amazing music, concerts, crazy surprise, delight items. It was super cool. And the first time I ever got to perform was pretty cool. Basically, my agent at the time, Jeremy Breland, who used to be an agent at Premier Speakers Bureau, the same bureau that Sean Hanks is now president of, who's coming with us to hang out next Friday for the work session. They used to work together. And at the time, Jeremy was like, who's this young kid that I'm losing all of these gigs to? He was pitching other people to, and I was out just road warrior doing 150 shows a year. And he was buddies with the person who basically ran like the red carpet before conference doors open and they let 10,000 people into an arena. They let them stack up early morning and they did this stage outside. And because they were buddies, they're like, hey, can you get my buddy Harris, he's this new client we're working with, onto that stage so we can get him some exposure. That person's name, ironically, was Ken Coleman. And Ken said, yeah, magician, that sounds cool. Let's get him on there. Well, then the MCs of the event, those two guys, one of them was named Lanny Donahoe, who was like, wait, you guys have a magician? What's his name? Told him his name's Harris III. He's like, oh my gosh, I just saw him perform at this awards banquet. He was like the entertainment for this awards banquet for this thing my kids went to. He's awesome. Actually, I want him for the main stage. Long story short, I'm on the main stage. Finally, 2006, I'm on stage at Catalyst in front of like 12,000 leaders. It was an amazing experience. I had about 10 to 15 minutes. I basically did two magic tricks over the course of those 10 to 15 minutes. One was this big Houdini escape. Alex is familiar with it. It's called Metamorphosis, but basically Kate and I, there's still videos of it on YouTube where we change places and do this escape. Super cool. And it was a huge learning experience for me. And this is the relevant part of the story for today, because while I was at that event, I got asked to come in a day early. I had to do this massive tech check, come in, talked about the lighting, the staging, where the volunteers were going to come from for the sake of cameras. I had to rehearse the interactions with the MCs, sound check. The whole thing took a couple of hours. We couldn't fly in. We had to drive down because we had all this gear to set up, right? And I thought, okay, this is a huge opportunity, lots of exposure. I'm excited if they just pay my expenses, but they also gave me a paycheck. I was thrilled. It was $500. $500. And I was like, okay, I made $500, but at least I got on stage at this really cool event in front of a whole bunch of cool people. And then I realized, okay, I just did a whole bunch of work. Like that was a lot of effort to get to Catalyst and to make all that happen and a gazillion phone calls. And then right after I was done with my tech check, someone else walked in. And I was like, hey, is that one of the speakers? And they said, no, it's just like, it's their, I forgot what it was. It was like their tour manager or production manager, or wasn't even an entertainer, it was a speaker. So they probably didn't have one of those. Might've been like an executive assistant that traveled with them. I said, what are they doing? They're like, oh, they're just walking up on stage and saying, yep, this looks good. And they talked into a microphone and they're like, yep, looks all good. And I realized they were doing the sound check for the speaker that was coming in tomorrow. Now, that speaker was also going to be on stage for about 20 minutes, which was about 5 minutes more than I was going to be on stage. And I finally found out that speaker was getting paid $50,000. $50,000. And I thought, hold up. They're getting paid $50,000 to talk into a microphone for 20 minutes. I'm getting paid $500 to drive all the way to Atlanta, truck in all this gear, do a 2-hour tech check, do all these conference calls. I was like, what something is off here, because the way I was raised is that the harder you work and the more time and hours you're delivering, the bigger your paycheck will be. And is that the case? Is that true? And obviously, this seems obvious to a lot of us now. So here's the cool part, and the thing that made me go, wow. Not only did I have this wow moment where I realized, oh my goodness, like, I think I'm positioned in the wrong spot. I don't want to be the $500 guy. I want to be the $50,000 guy, because I was working harder. And if I'm really honest, at the risk of sounding arrogant, I actually think I was just as talented, even in 2006, as the speaker who was communicating to the audience that day. And so if we're not being paid by our hours, if we're not being paid by how hard we work, if we're not being paid by some sort of innate talent or how great our skill is, what are we paid by? And come to find out, it was authority, right? And so the cool part is, fast forward about 10 years, 10 years. 10 years later, I get a call from Catalyst Conference. Hey, Harris, our theme this year is called Awakening Wonder. We just talked to a publisher, heard your book is coming out. And I was like, oh, cool. They must be inviting me back because I performed at your conference 10 years ago. And I will never forget what they said on the phone. I was like, oh, cool, man. I would love to come back at Catalyst. I will never forget like performing on stage in the middle of an arena for all 12,000 leaders. And the person on the phone said, oh, you've been to Catalyst before. And so I thought, oh, okay. So why are you calling me back? Is it because I did a good job? And it's like, oh, we didn't know you've been here before. Long story short, I won't draw it out. I got invited back to speak at this point. They had expanded and done 3 different conferences. So that year I spoke at Catalyst in Atlanta at Gwinnett Arena for about 12,000, 15,000 people. I spoke on stage at Catalyst West for another 5,000 to 6,000 people out in Orange County. And then I also did Catalyst Cincinnati, I believe, that year for another 5,000 or 6,000 leaders. But the reason they were calling me was not because, oh, let's get that magician back again. It's because 10 years later, I had different brand authority, and the authority was creating demand in the marketplace. Based on my brand positioning, they had an opportunity to discover what I did. And in the context of that conversation, once I expressed familiarity with that brand, it was an instant yes, like, oh my gosh, now it's a no-brainer. We've got to get you on stage at all of our conferences this year. Now, I don't remember what I got paid. It was not $50,000. All right. So that's not the cherry on top in this story. But I didn't get paid $500. It was probably $10,000 to $15,000, probably, to be honest. So what can we learn from that experience? That we all should be working towards building something that I think a lot of us currently don't have. And it's entirely possible. If you go to your worksheet, let's lay a foundation for the conversation by looking at this. As I was thinking about how do we best communicate this, the first illustration that came to mind for me was the idea of scales, that there's this sort of scale tipper, right? Let me change my color of my pencil here and write some stuff in here. I think on one side of this, you sort of have cold calls, right? And I don't mean that you're literally picking up the phone. None of us encourage you to just pick up the phone and make cold calls. That's not what we're encouraging you to do. But I think a lot of us, when we start our businesses, we're in a season where, well, gosh, Harris, I'm not really getting a lot of calls. No one's really calling me. And so we have to do the equivalent of cold calls. We call people, we DM people, we email people, we go to networking events. We have to go out and seek business, or we pay for it, right? We pay for that traffic by way of ads. We do something where we go to the world because, well, the world isn't coming to us yet, right? And on the opposite side of the spectrum of making cold calls all the time, we have warm leads, right? It's instead of my agent at the time, Jeremy, calling Catalyst going, hey, I'm pitching you this guy, young magician, you should find a spot for him somewhere. Can I pull a favor? Instead, it's Catalyst coming to me going, hey, we love what you do. We heard about the book that you're working on from a publisher. You seem to have some expertise on this topic, this theme that we have this year. We want to talk to you. And when you have a warm lead, a bunch of cool things start happening. You get higher pay. The scale starts tipping more in your favor. You have more efficiency in your sales process because you don't have to spend your time going to people because they're coming to you. Sales resistance starts to be dissolved. You get to a yes a lot easier. And what's really cool is you also have a lot more freedom. Once you start getting into this season, you have the freedom to say the things that you want to say, to demand what it is that you want to demand, to ask that an event be a certain way to set you up to win. Not because you want to be served by them, you're still showing up to serve them, but all of a sudden they care about the way the room is set up. They care about the mic that you want to use. They care about how you want to open doors and let people into they care about everything, because all of a sudden they are respecting your authority and they're giving you a chance to consult them. And so if you want to move out of this season of feeling like I've got to make some cold calls and get in touch with people, and I want warm leads of people who are coming to me, the thing that tips the scale is just that. It's authority. Authority. And so the question is, how do we build it? And that's what I want to talk about today, is how do we build authority? And I totally understand as we jump into this, this is one of those topics that's less tactical, right? We'll get into it here in just a second. There are some tactical things that we can do. You might have a to-do list at the end of today, like I said at the beginning of the session, but this is not one of those sessions where, cool, I came today and we crafted this cool little email, or I crafted this new little row on my website, and when I hit publish, or when I click send, or when I hit post on that piece of content, I got a bunch of hand raises, a bunch of leads hit my inbox, and all of a sudden I made more money as a result of what we did today. The challenge is because the response to authority isn't immediate, and because building authority doesn't happen overnight, this is one of those proverbial cans that we like to kick down the road, right? But Harris, I want clients now. I understand. We all want clients now. But do you want to get clients easier a year from now? Do you want the clients that you get a year from now to pay you more money? I do. To do that, we need brand authority. And so how do we do both simultaneously? How do we play the short game of growing our business, increasing our authority, play the long game of increasing our authority so that these things happen to us down the road? Here are some thoughts on that. If we go back to the worksheet, I put in a page that I just call authority building blocks. I think when you're sort of first starting out, when you first begin your business, you're in this stage where you're just trying to get from zero to something. And for us, that magical number seems to be 50K. There's something about making $50,000 a year doing your own thing, right? That's a very common. A freelancer is saying like, gosh, I left my job and now I enjoy doing this type of work. I'm a graphic designer and I go out and I hustle and I call people, I get projects, and eventually all those freelance projects stack up. And at some point they start equaling money to live off of. I'm like, whoa, I just went from $0. I started a new business and I made my first $50,000 a year. And I think this, when it comes to the authority conversation, it puts us in a season where we have to ask for authority because it doesn't currently exist. Most of you got to where you are now because there's a reason why we're doing this particular topic in this work session in this season. If I were to talk to the group of people who are making $0 to $50,000 about, hey, let's build some brand authority, it's an overwhelming conversation because they're like, I can't even think about that right now because I'm trying to figure out how to pay my mortgage next month because I need clients now, not later. Which starts to bring up this second stage and why it's really important for you guys. And this is where I think a lot of us in this group are. And you're in this stage where you are building authority. Okay? You no longer have to ask for it as much. We're going to continue to ask for it. You're not asking people, hey, just give me a shot. Just put me on stage. Take this magician, just put him on stage at Catalyst. Trust me on this, right? We're in a stage where we have to build authority. And this is where I think most of you are. It's kind of in that sweet spot the Grow cohort is focused on. It's kind of like this 250K number. When I see countless businesses kind of hovering between 50 and 250K a year, it's because they are still in a season where they are asking for authority and building authority. And what I want to get you guys to, and what I think that final stage of 250K to 7 figures plus is, I would think of this as cycling. All of a sudden, you're just sort of cycling authority. Now what's happening in the season of business that I'm in is that I'm not really going out and asking for authority. I'm not even really focusing my day-to-day efforts on building authority. I am leveraging, leverage would be a key word in this conversation. I'm leveraging the authority that I already have to create this cycle that continues to build more on my behalf. Okay. And if I can leverage the authority I have to build even more authority, that means while I'm sleeping or while I'm out serving a client or while I'm hanging out with my kids, my authority continues to rise. And with it, so does my revenue and my income. And a whole bunch of other stuff that's really hard to quantify, right? Like if you need to hire somebody and I put a job resume or job posting on my website, the difference between someone who struggles to find applicants and someone who posts a job and gets 50 to 60 applicants is authority. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I was trying to hire someone. I struggled to find someone, right? Like, what was it, like 9 months ago? I posted the job position that we ended up hiring Angie for on the internet. I think we ended up getting like 50 to 60 applications. What's the difference? Was my audience bigger now than it was then? Not necessarily, but I have different brand authority now, which means there was a longer list of people who are like, man, I want to go work for that guy, right? Brand authority, brand authority, brand authority, brand authority. So before we jump into how to build this, let's just talk about some of the common myths, missteps, the mistakes that people make. Let's start with you guys. What starts to come to mind if I ask you, what would brand authority make possible for you? Let's get tangible. You've heard me name some of the really big, high level conceptual things, right? You're going to make more money. You can increase your fee. But let's get really tangible. When you think about some of the problems in your own business, some of the challenges that you have that you're bumping into right now, what would having a little bit more brand authority assist you with dissolving? Drop some stuff into the chat. Let's do some thinking on this. Yeah, external clarity, leads for sure. Yeah, let's talk about the leads for a second, right? This is the difference between one person without authority using a tactic and one person with authority using a tactic, right? And this frustrates some of you guys. I get it. Sometimes you're like, hey, just send this spear out to your list. Harris said he sent this spear message out to his email list and instantly got 100 replies. His list isn't any bigger than mine because he said he just sent it out to these 500 people. So I don't understand. How come 100 people replied to his and I got 2? What's the difference? It's not always the list size. It's not always the quality of the product that you're offering. It's brand authority. So yeah, it makes lead generation a little bit easier. Leo says it would save you a lot of time. That's a big one, right? And again, this is why it's associated with different income and revenue levels, right? Authority makes your business more efficient. My schedule doesn't have fewer work hours in it, but my work hours are devoted to higher level tasks because now I'm not cold calling people. I'm not emailing 100 people a day saying, will you book me? Will you let me on stage at your conference, right? If we think about the speaking business, that's something that's come up a lot over the last few months with this group and something we're talking about quite a few times over the next few weeks. Just in the speaking business alone, a lot of us are in that stage. It's that building block, right? We go back to the building blocks. Look at those income levels. There's lots of asking going on. Lots of pitching yourself as a speaker. I don't really send emails out pitching myself as a speaker. And yet $15,000 to $20,000 keynote fees happen. Why? Because of brand authority. So yeah, saves you a ton of time, Leo. And that's just one example of the time saved. I don't have to spend my time calling people. If they're calling you, it's a lot more efficient. Shared costs, i.e. people willing to host you and expenses on their behalf. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Lots of times when we go places, it's like, hey, can you just take care of that? Yeah, because we want to host you. We want to have you. Wait lists for offerings. That's a big one, Molly. Well done. Way to get creative. Wait lists for offerings. So when you have brand authority, that means less financial risk, less ambiguity, less sitting in the dark wondering, are people going to respond to this thing? Because I know what happens if, let's take a real world example in my business. We've not done this yet, but we took this thing called Story, right? Built this brand over the course of 7 years, built a lot of brand authority around this brand. And we say, hey, we're going to take a pause. Story 2023 is not happening. Everyone's like, oh, if Story said, hey, we're cooking up something new and it's coming in 2024. Want to be first in line? Drop your name and email in below. How many ads would we have to run to that page to build a big list? Probably not that many. So it's going to save us some money, but it's also going to save us some time, and our wait list is going to be high. Why? Just because the brand, because people are going to talk about it is going to create some buzz, right? Yeah. I think it removes gatekeepers for sure. That's another really creative one. Way to go, Sherry. Removes a gatekeeper, right? When you have brand authority and you want to call someone without brand authority, what happens? Voicemails, emails, follow up, hang up, talk to my secretary, talk to my assistant, right? With all brand authority, what happens? Hey, can I please speak to? Yeah, can I let them know who's calling? Yeah, it's insert your name. Oh, yeah, sure. They'll call you right back, right? So that's a good one. The ability to choose which gigs make the most sense. Yeah, it's a great one, Michael. And we'll find out here in a second. One of the components when we look at these different pillars of brand authority is the ability to say no. And that's a muscle a lot of us have to get a lot stronger if we're going to do this well. Yeah. Increase in fees, their value transformation informed. This is all great stuff. You guys are tracking really, really well. Leanne says, I feel like I have the inside out problem. I have brand authority. I think I do, but have leveraged it so often for other businesses. I haven't charged my worth. And being here is helping me catch up with that challenge. I know this isn't what you asked. It's just where I believe I'm at right now. Leanne, 100% agree with you. The reason why you have companies and sponsors coming to you is because of the authority you've built over the years. The good news is you've stacked up all this equity called authority. You haven't cashed in on it yet. And now we're cashing in on it by making offers available to the world so that they can actually compensate you for the authority that you've already built. Now, does that mean that you can't continue to build more authority? No, but it means these income levels might be flawed and off for you. They might be misaligned compared to what I gave you, because while these are theoretically generally true for someone who hasn't been putting offers out into the world, but building authority, it's kind of like, caffeine blocking your adenosine receptors. And then all of a sudden the caffeine wears off. Well, your body was still producing adenosine all day, but now the caffeine wears off and you get a rush of adenosine into your bloodstream. And all of a sudden you get that caffeine crash, like, oh, I'm so sleepy. That's what's happening. You haven't had the income coming in because you haven't made the offers available. However, you've still been doing the brand authority building work. And as a result, it's stacking up, it's stacking up, it's stacking up, and stacking up. Now you said, hey, I'm going to watch this thing. And you open this little gate. And all of a sudden there was a flood of people going, yeah, I'd love to give you money. Okay. All right, cool. So if we want to increase our fees, if we want to get higher pay, if we want to dissolve sales resistance so that selling is easier, if we want our phone to ring instead of us having to constantly call people, if we want to create more efficiency in our schedule, if we want to have more freedom to be able to rant and show up with passion and say to the world what it is that we want to say without being like, who does that person think they are? Here's the challenge with this. Here's the challenge, right? I want to be honest with you guys. It will be very easy to look at this list of things and for this to feel very intangible. And I know I talked about this a little bit just a second ago, but I'm going to continue to remind you of this. Brand authority is the thing that is not going to get you a client tomorrow, but is going to get you the client that you need a year from now. So if you're in this middle season, this middle building block where you're going, I've got to build brand authority in this season, we can't put off tomorrow what needs to be done today. Otherwise, you are forever going to be trapped in the cycle that you're in today, a year from now. It is very tempting for people in my position in a program like this called the Poetics to go, oh, let's just give them the tactics. Let's ignore all the brand strategy stuff that real businesses focus on. Let's just focus on the tactics that are going to get them clients tomorrow. We spend a lot of time on that stuff. And so I want you to, even if it's outside of your comfort zone, to humor me for today and just open-mindedly step into a conversation about what it looks like to invest in your tomorrow by way of investing in authority today. All right, let's jump in. So how do we build brand authority? I think it is through some pillars. I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I already changed my mind about one of the things that you're going to see in your worksheet. So as you know, we're always trying to innovate and level this stuff up, even if it means that we're changing it while we're in front of you. And as I thought a lot about, like, what's the best metaphor for building brand authority, I kept coming back to this idea of pillars. And then when you think about the idea of pillars, there's also a foundation that pillars sit on. And there's also a roof that sort of protects those pillars from the elements. A conversation around brand authority is really a conversation around positioning. This is the foundation of everything. Most everything I learned about positioning was formed kind of in the early days on the heels of that catalyst experience, that big aha moment going, I need to stop reading magic trick books and start reading business books. And that led me back to old school, like advertising gurus, like Al Ries and Jack Trout, all their strategy and positioning books. And what I learned about positioning is that it's really hard. It's really hard because entrepreneurs, I was just listening to a podcast about this the other day, and it was like, entrepreneurs are just wired. It's like we're genetically wired to say yes to opportunity, right? Something sounds like an opportunity. We're like, yeah, that's a cool idea. We should do that, right? Oh, hey, can you come perform or speak, or can you jump on the phone and do this session with this person? I mean, in your head, you're like, that's not really my thing, but I mean, I totally could, and it's money, and I love making money, and I'm an entrepreneur, and that's what entrepreneurs do. And so, yeah, sure, I can do that. And positioning is more about your ability to say no. It's about what you have the discipline to say no to than what you have consistently said yes to. And so you guys have to step into a season where you start saying no to the wrong things for the sake of saying yes to the right things. And when you hear someone talk about that, where your brain has a tendency to go is, oh, he's talking about scheduling. This is the everything I say yes to, we by default say no to something else. That's not what I'm talking about here. When you say no to someone who is bringing you an opportunity, you just built a little bit of brand authority, because the average human being doesn't know how to say no. When you craft a manifesto that says, this is what we're going against, and these people are not our people because we're trying to dismantle the status quo in these ways. You were saying what you were for, and by default, if your values are on display strong enough, you are stating what you're against. The moment you draw that imaginary line in the sand that helps someone identify and self-select out and go, well, I don't like that, so that's not for me, you just built a little bit more brand authority. So positioning is a conversation around how do we say no? And we learn to say no through these 4 pillars, I believe. So here's what they are. I think these 4 pillars, I'm just going to go ahead and give them all to you first. 1, POV, point of view, right? How do we have a strong point of view, and how do we share that point of view in the world in a way that builds brand authority? We'll talk about that in just a second. Another one is proof, and there are different forms of proof. We'll talk about that in a second, but I think it's one of the 4 pillars, right? Third one, some of you guys thought it was going to be a P word, didn't you? Excellence. Excellence. That is a part of building brand authority. And then last but not least, the one that really teaches you to say no, expertise. Point of view, proof, excellence, and expertise. All right, let's take these one at a time and jump into them, and we'll see if we can get practical here in just a second. What is point of view? What is point of view? For those of you who've been around for a while in this group, and especially got a chance to be in the same room with Mr. Ken Black, one of my mentors and story speaker and coach and advisor to a lot of people who are running expert firms these days. Ken is all about point of view, right? Point of view, the most obvious version for you guys to wrap your head around what it looks like to have a point of view is all the work that we've done around manifestos. If you don't have a manifesto, it's really hard for you to communicate your point of view to someone. A manifesto, a solid one, a quality one that you spend a little bit of time with crafting, even if you never share it with the world, it's sort of the litmus test for your own clarity that you have done the work necessary to refine what your point of view is in the world. Okay. So what is an example of a point of view? A point of view might say, hey, I think people are settling for the status quo, and I think they meant for more. And I'm kind of sick and tired of people just kind of going through the motions, settling for a counterfeit version of the life they've lived out. And every single problem in their life that they're experiencing as a result of settling is a storytelling problem. And I could say a lot more about that, but the moment I get to every problem is a storytelling problem, that point of view is strong enough that there's a bunch of people who go, well, you know, not every problem is a storytelling problem. I'm like, nope, every problem is a storytelling problem. Where when I start talking about my point of view, do I get to a spot where all of a sudden people are just like, well, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's technically true. They start looking for the technicality. Sometimes that's because of discomfort. Sometimes it's because they feel challenged by it. Sometimes it's because they're argumentative and they just want, and anybody who comes out in the world and declares something to be true with passion and with strength and with courage, they're immediately going to be like, oh, this seems like one of those world changer types. I don't need my world being changed. I want to stay comfortable, get in line, and not cause a ruckus. And if he's going to come along and disrupt everything, I'm going to try to take him out and cancel him, right? You have a point of view already. Some of you just aren't sharing it with others. You're just not sharing it with others. But this point of view is not just a manifesto, okay? Some of you guys have a super awesome manifesto because we did so much work around that a long time ago. And you took the manifesto that was crafted, you got super excited about it. You're like, that was awesome. Man, I came home from the retreat. I wrote this really beautiful manifesto. Molly cried about hers in the shower, right? It's so good. It's so good. And then we walk on stage and we leave our manifesto point of view behind. Then I pick up my phone and I go live on Instagram and I leave my manifesto point of view behind. Your point of view informs everything that you do. If I sit down and have something as small as a 1-hour coffee meeting with another entrepreneur friend or potential partner or anyone that I'm trying to do business with, and if that person doesn't walk away from that meeting going, dang, that guy's got a strong point of view, then I have failed at fulfilling the fullest potential of taking my point of view and sharing it with the world. You cannot build brand authority without a strong point of view. Now, if even right now you're thinking, well, I'm not sure what my point of view is, that's a sign of why you don't already have some brand authority that you could have, right? And so if this is for you and you're thinking, okay, this is an area that I need to do some work in, the work that we're going to do in a second, it'll give you some tangible things to work on, but you might notate this and go, okay, I've got some point of view work to do. And the work, I'm telling you, is not equal to you trying to figure out what your point of view is. That's expertise, which we'll talk about in a second. It's the courage and the willingness and the ability to do enough inner work to develop the self-confidence and courage necessary to step on a stage or in front of a camera or on Zoom or over a coffee table and actually share it with people. All of you have one. It's just not on display. I'm just now looking at the chat. You guys are kind of just affirming what I'm talking about. The sharing part of a strong point of view is easier said than done. No doubt. No doubt. Why? Because it might cost us business, which is a form of saying no, right? People might say no to us and we might say no to them. But what are we sacrificing in the process of getting to that short-term yes? You're sacrificing the long-term authority that's going to position your business in a way that a year from now, people are calling you and you no longer have to call them. Yeah, Jen said, and some of the work is not point of view, but it's the willingness to share it. Exactly. Exactly. All right. Leo's saying, I think I share my point of view privately, but not in a very public way. Yeah. This is not shocking for a Canadian, right? And I know we joke around about that, but that stereotype is there. It's a real thing, right? Now, if you combine stereotype with upbringing, ethnicity, the culture in our home that we grew up in, all of a sudden, it's very easy to get to the point where it's like, in my house, we didn't talk about religion. We didn't talk about politics when we were guests in other people's homes or they were guests in ours. Those were topics that were not welcome at the dinner table. And so, though I knew what those two things were on the list, there was kind of this vibe that's like, well, if those two things aren't allowed, I don't really know what else is left other than what happened at school today. And so we're just not really going to have strong opinions in our house when people are around. Right? Which then creates this feeling of like, well, I just want to be liked by everybody. We're the type of family that doesn't ruffle any feathers, because if you ruffle feathers, it might cost you something. And when you have a scarcity mindset that says you can't afford to lose anything, then I don't share my point of view and ruffle feathers because it might cost me something I need. Again, we play the short-term game to get the short-term win. I need you guys playing chess while the rest of the entrepreneurs are playing checkers. Play the long game, position yourself for the future, choose authority instead. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Leah, it's hard, man. It's hard, right? Where was it on a Podexco? We were talking about the tennis player interview, the athlete who got interviewed by the news media It's like, hey, you really crushed the other guy on that last match. He's like, yeah, really sorry about that. I'm sorry I played so great today. It was just sorry, right? It's like, we got to stop. So if we need to practice sharing our point of view, it starts in a small group, and then we share it with a little bit bigger group. And that group might be a small audience online. And then we see what happens when we put our point of view on display. You might get some unfollows, you might ruffle a few feathers, but most of the time what happens is your engagement goes up, and it helps you find your people. What's the thing that you've always kept in that you've always wanted to say? What's the thing that's always pissed you off and you're just like, I wish someone would say something about this? What's the thing that's always been a desire? Just like, I wish I could talk to somebody. The stuff that's in your heart, let it out, put it on display. Yeah, it's not easy. So I'm not trying to downplay this and how difficult it is. It is simple, but it's not easy. I want to add Kate to the spotlight here, because as our resident manifesto evangelist.
Yes.
Okay, what am I not covering right now when it comes to having and developing and sharing a strong point of view that you might want to contribute?
Well, one of the things I was going to say is I was going to reference the call that we had on Wednesday with Christina, talking about the podcast that she had done and kind of some of the feedback that she had gotten back. Sometimes your point of view is who you are. It's not necessarily just the things that you believe in or just the things that you want to tell people. It's who you are. And if who you are authentically is not the thing that is coming across, that is still playing small, that's still not getting your full point of view out into the world. Because who you are informs your belief system, informs what you're passionate about. So I wanted to add that in there so that you don't think like, I just have to have these ranting thoughts or emotions or things that I'm like upset about. That's the easy thing. But being authentic to who you are and staying to your own personal point of view, the things that you believe, the things that you're passionate about, the things that you really want to say. So if that's swearing on a podcast, Christina, by all means, do it.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. Well said. All right. We'll come back to a to-do list and some tactical ways that you can work on your point of view. And hopefully that'll lead to a little small task list for you, so you can figure out, what do I need to look at within my current business to put point of view more on display. Let's take a look at the second pillar, so we make sure we have enough time to get through all four of these. And that is proof. When you start to develop authority, and we live in a world that is very cynical and skeptical, right? And people will start to doubt it. And it's just like, well, how do I know that this person who seems to be saying these very passionate things that I align with, how do I know this is true? Because if you are sharing your point of view at the level that we think you should be sharing it with the world, it should sound too good to be true. The vision should feel so lofty. The opinion should be so strong. The views should have so much passion that people should be going like, yeah, like, man, yes, preach. But wait a second. No, this sounds too good to be true. No one is this, but no one is this, fill in the blank, right? And so we need proof for that. And so the obvious parts of proof are, other people saying, hey, this person is exactly who they say that they are. Whether that's social proof in a variety of forms, a client list, there are some simple practical things that you can do to increase and continue building your brand authority and maintain it for the long haul. But in order to keep it, you've got to have proof. So we'll look at that list here in just a second. The third one is excellence. Especially when you're starting out in the early days and you're trying to figure out, how do I build more brand authority when I just feel like, gosh, there's no way to get on that stage in front of those 12,000 leaders. A lot of times it just comes down to excellence. Jeremy's ability in that moment to say to his buddy Ken, hey, put this guy on stage before you open doors at Catalyst this year. That existed not because I had a lot of social proof and testimonials, not because I had a strong point of view figured out that I was sharing with the world yet. If I had, I might have been the $50,000 speaker instead of the $500 magician, right? But what gave him just enough to work with? And I would say it's excellence, right? And so a lot of times when we hear things about brand strategy, positioning, authority, they're easy to write off as like, that takes too much time, or that sounds very expensive. And one thing that all of you have at your disposal is the ability to perform your craft with excellence. And I'm not just talking about the delivery of your product. I'm talking about the reality that marketing is a battle of perceptions. And sometimes we fall too much into the trap of DIY because most of us grew up in a culture that DIY'd everything. And now we have a DIY network on television. There is now this idea of, well, just watch a YouTube video or turn on the weekend DIY network and you can DIY anything. We could have a long conversation about that, right? You go, I'm going to DIY remodeling my bathroom. Is it possible? Sure. Is it going to take you longer? Are you going to make costly mistakes and errors? Eventually, you're going to have to end up hiring someone anyway, right? But what happens if you replace bathroom in that scenario with website, with social media content, with the type of stuff that you use to produce and design your experiences, the venues that you operate in? Now, this is a tricky balance, right? Because it's easy to go, oh, well, Harris is talking about if you're going to host a conference, rent a $100,000 symphony hall. And that's not always what I'm talking about. Marketing is a battle of perception, not spending. Sometimes advertising can be a battle of spending. Who can spend more? Even that, you still might outspend and lose the game. What you can do, sometimes it requires spending extra money, but it doesn't always. What you can do is have a standard of excellence that you do not compromise. And with that comes more brand authority. Okay, so we'll talk about that here in just a second. All right, the fourth pillar, let's jump into it, talk about what it is. Expertise. Expertise is what allows you to say, you know, I'm just going to stop passing out the business card that says I'm a magician for all occasions, which we've all, maybe not we've all seen those. I have seen those, and you guys have seen some version of those, right? When I was a kid, I remember we would go to like a conference with other magicians or other performers, and we didn't have the internet back then. And so everybody would just trade business cards. And so I would come home from every single conference with this tall stack of business cards. And in those business cards, when you go through them, even if it didn't say magician for all occasions, what was very common is for some graphic designer or marketing agency who helped the magician make their business card, or if the magician designed it themselves, at some point it would equal a list. Birthday parties, corporate events, school functions, bar mitzvahs, right? Anything that you might need a magician for, here are the examples of how you can hire me. Now, you guys tell me instead of me telling you, if I am a magician who is capable of crushing a birthday party, I'm in your living room, hanging out with a bunch of 5, 6-year-olds, 10-year-olds, however old they are. I mean, I've got the kid up. The birthday person becomes the star of the show because they helped me make the bunny rabbit appear at the end, right? Got this whole little self-contained unit come in and make some balloon animals at the end because I wanted to upsell a little bit, make an extra $25, $50 of the birthday party. Is the company who's looking for a magician to come in and entertain their high-profile clients that they're trying to do 6 figures of business each with, are they going to bring the birthday party magician in who's twisting balloon animals and making rabbits appear to their corporate event? No. Does that mean that I wouldn't be good at it? Might be. But their perception is that I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert. And so once again, expertise is not always rooted in simply your talent. Expertise is not rooted in your abilities. Many of you are capable of saying yes to a lot of things, but authority comes from what you say no to. So how can you develop enough expertise and position yourself around the expertise in the marketplace to build enough authority to experience all the benefits of authority that we've talked about earlier? Okay, so expertise. So we'll look at a list here in just a second of what those things are. So those are the 4 pillars. 4 pillars, I think, of building brand authority. It is a game of positioning built on the pillars of a strong point of view, the proof that backs it up, the excellence that makes it believable, because marketing is a battle of perceptions, and then a specific enough niche expertise that people go, this person is for me, but they're not for everybody. Now, there is a roof on this diagram. What is this roof? This roof is very important. It's obvious when you hear it, but there are some important things that protect your brand authority, both after you build it and as you're building it. They're very similar to each other. One is something I would simply call integrity, and the other is trust. What happens if I take the authority that I've spent the last 20 to, with some people 30 years building in my career as an entrepreneur and as a speaker, as an author, as a magician? What happens if I compromise my integrity in the marketplace with one or more clients? What happens if I compromise the trust that I've built with even any of you, members of the Poetics, our clients? What happens? Everything starts to cave down, right? That roof starts to disintegrate, and then weather starts to come in, and those pillars start to fall. And then this really awesome house of authority that I've built on a foundation of strong positioning starts to be eroded. So as we build brand authority, it is not only about these 4 pillars. It is about you taking the character that we already know exists inside of each of you, or you wouldn't be in this community, right? And conducting business in the world with trust and integrity, so that as you do the really difficult, time-consuming work that sometimes can also cost you an investment of building brand authority, that you keep it once you build it. I know this is obvious and it should go without saying, but I just want to remind you, don't waste the years of work to build something only to see it go away by taking a little moment where you're scared or afraid, where you compromise your character and make the wrong decision. You have a lapse of integrity that erodes trust, and then the pillars cave and fall apart. Deal? Deal. All right. Let me pause here. Let's see what questions you guys have going into this last section, and we'll do this authority builder page of the worksheet and see what we can do in each of these 4 areas to get you some stuff to work on. Let's pause. What's been most helpful so far? Let's start there before we get into questions. What's been most helpful or valuable about this conversation? I never want to drop at least 1 or 2 things into the chat. That's going to kind of allow me to check in with you guys and see how you're doing. Let's see where your heads are at. What's been most valuable or helpful to you so far? The reminder of what authority can do for your business, especially a thing about warm leads. Yep. What else? Remember, because of these building blocks, right, where you go from asking for authority to building your own authority to then authority being this cycle that continues to snowball. It's like a snowball, an avalanche. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as it snowballs. Authority is something that you never fully finish, right? You may not need any more of it to live the life that you want to live. But even if you're like, I don't need to invest in building any more authority, that cycling stage, it continues to snowball whether you want it to or not, right? Until you compromise it and you lose trust. All right. Angie, let's get you involved in this conversation, if you wouldn't mind, because the chat is very small on my screen. Rather than me squint at it, let me spotlight you.
I mean, we can totally have you squint.
Why don't you read some stuff out?
Yeah, I love it. So there's a lot of good things. I think it's fun to be able to revisit these conversations because it brings up other foundational work that I think that we all need to sometimes revisit, and the importance of revisiting it. So Leo says, the reminder of what authority can do for your business, especially the things about warm leads, which is huge. Leanne, my point of view bleeding into everything I do. So great. Diana says, my brain started spinning about what my point of view is. That's a good one. Molly, it's good to see it illustrated this way and see which are better than others. And then Alex put a quote in here. I've always had this in my heart, but have never said it. It's a great one. It's a great point of view or way to look at it too. And Leo said, oh, and I need to share my point of view publicly more often. That's the big one. That's a huge one.
So lots of point of view stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you very much. So let's drill in on that then. I want to hone in on point of view because it sounds like that's where a lot of us are stuck. We'll hit the other 3, but let's get you guys dialed in on point of view to make sure that you leave this call with the ability to have strong positioning. Okay. Kate, before I jump into the next page on the worksheet, anything that you have that you would like to add?
No, I'm laughing a little bit because when we had a conversation before we started this call and kind of walked through some of these, and my opinion on some of this work was, gosh, point of view seems to be a thing that we continue to come back to over and over and over again. Everything about your point of view is literally, it's in there. It's the foundation of everything that you do, because you can't create without it. You can't share ideas without it. You can't grow without it. And really, why would anyone want to follow you if you don't have a strong point of view? If you're going to be wishy-washy on things, you're easily written off. And from me, this is the kind of stuff that I'm ranting about, because I'm like, come on, we can do this. I want you guys to have a strong point of view. I can't remember the exact way Ken Black said it, but it was something about, if you don't have a strong point of view, you're basically an advertisement or an announcement and not an advertisement. I don't remember exactly how he said it, but getting clear on not just what you believe, but why you believe it. Getting clear on who you are and why your point of view matters to you is really the starting point. Like, if you scroll up and Diana is saying, my brain started spinning at what my point of view is, and it's easy to say your point of view is on your systems. Yes, and it's not just the systems, it's why the systems. Why are you so passionate about it? What is it that people are missing or missing out on? And what do you want for them? Because it's something you want for yourself. Mm-hmm. So I want you guys to get so clear about this and so passionate about it and dig in deep. Like, I can get passionate about this. Like, I want you to be just that passionate about what it is that your point of view is. And if you're Leanne and your point of view is butter, I mean, really, that's not the point of view. The point of view is come back to the table. This is about community. I'm passionate about community because community matters to me. And community happens around food and a table and around this whole structure. And when you have community, you get the opportunity to give back. That's a point of view. So I would encourage you all to find those things. And thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
What's so fascinating about this right now is, like, you notice, does Kate have a strong point of view? And ironically, she has a strong point of view about you all having a point of view, right? But yet how many of you felt that energy just now? You felt it from her, right? It's coming from a place of passion. It's coming from a place of passion. Where does that passion come from? From a place of love and care and concern. It's like, I want you guys to succeed. I'm passionate for that. And so therefore, I want to share this with you in a way that you get it. I want to speak it in a way that it's heard. I want to get through to you. That's a point of view. She has that. She just shared it with you. Her POV is about your POV, right? So how do we get it?
Yes. And for the record, we're not just here to make money. We're here because we want to help you guys. We're here because we want to help you take your business and yourself and everything that's about to come further with more clarity and focus, because we are passionate about you getting there.
Yep. Agreed. Okay. Let's jump into the Authority Builder page of the worksheet. It looks like this. We created this worksheet on Tuesday, back when I think positioning is one of the pillars of authority. And then I realized, no, positioning is the foundation. It's literally the foundation. All of this is positioning. It's actually a point of view that is one of the unique pillars. So I've gone ahead and scribbled that out for you. I would encourage you to do the same if you're taking notes on an actual worksheet. Point of view, proof, excellence, and expertise. Let's hang out in point of view for a little while, and then we can come back to proof, excellence, and expertise. I just want to give you, this is just kind of a checklist. I'm just going to write a checklist out for you. And I want you guys to do as much application as you can in your business. Again, this is not one of the typical, like, this is a tactic or an exercise. This is designed, maybe even think of this as an audit. I think, at risk of finding a better word, a way of kind of auditing and getting a snapshot of how am I doing in each of these 4 areas. And so where are the low-hanging fruit opportunities for me to improve on as soon as possible in the short term? What needs immediate focus in these 4 areas? And then what are some things on this list that I need to look ahead at and figure out how am I building these things over time? Okay. So when it comes to point of view, I think one of the primary ones is obviously the manifesto. If you have not crafted a manifesto yet, it is time to stop putting it off. It is your vision for the world that you're trying to create through your work on steroids. Okay. And a lot of times that's the type of work that we undervalue. And yet it can drive quite literally almost every other facet of your business. Some of you have a manifesto, you did the work and it's beautiful. You just never really did much with it. And it's time to share it. Now, it doesn't mean you have to take and make this gorgeous manifesto video, put it out in the world, but it should be informing what you do. And the greatest way to see a point of view show up first is in what we believe manifesto work. Okay, manifesto work. So I would say take a look at the manifesto. If you haven't done it yet, put it on your to-do list to spend some time in this area. That's where I would start. Okay. We've talked a lot about ranting. You just heard Kate ranting, passion. This is not a specific project, but I would be asking yourself to sort of survey across all of your sharing, whether it's on a stage, the way that you show up on social media, the way you show up on Zoom for your clients, if you're running some sort of coaching program. Are you injecting passion into what you're doing? Do your people feel it? And that's the litmus test, right? Like, do they feel it? Like, I might know, well, Alex can't step onto a stage and do a good show unless he's passionate about what he does. But if I go survey people in the hallway, can the people who walk out of the theater at the end of the show, can they tell me what Alex was passionate about? And did they sense it? Did they feel it? Right? I know Molly would not have succeeded at building her build program without passion. But if I go talk to all the members of her build program, do they have a full, clear, impeccably clear awareness of Molly's passion and her point of view on the world? And if not, we got to show up better in these areas. And so I always think, look at point of view through that lens of, are you ranting about something? Is there a villain, a literal villain, or a philosophical villain that exists in the world that you are trying to dismantle? All right. Remember Val at the retreat, for those of you who are in Orlando with us, and she's like, time to dismantle patriarchy, right? And you could feel it in the room. It's like, whoa, that's big, right? Dang, girl. Like, what is that? That's a visceral response to, holy smokes, that's coming from a place of Pat. That is a strong point of view. And so are you injecting that into everything that you do? And so survey all your stuff. If you're sharing it on stage in a keynote and you're getting like great responses from your live presentations, but you're like, how come no one's responding to my Instagram stories? It's because you are sharing with passion with a strong point of view from a platform at a live event, but not on social media. And if you want the response to be there, if you want the engagement to go up, goodness gracious, get more passionate, please. Okay. We'll come back to this with expertise again, but are you saying no? What are you saying no to? You might say no, or people might learn, oh, this person is not for me when it comes to conversations around hiring, rooted in your expertise, but it starts at a high level with your point of view, right? Go back to the manifesto again. Your manifesto should draw a very clear metaphorical line in the sand that makes people understand, like, am I this person's person or not, right? Oh man, I just read that manifesto. This guy is not for me. She is not for me. Great. Do people have the ability to clearly determine and say no to you, or are you saying no to them? Both should be happening simultaneously. And I would say, if you don't have people saying no, I'm not talking about like your price is too high or a sales objection, like I don't have time to participate in this program right now. We're not talking about low-level sales objections. We're talking about, I'm saying no to you, the person. I'm saying no, Christina is not for me because I cannot believe she dropped an F-bomb on that podcast interview. Okay. That's the type of no that we're looking for. So is your point of view being delivered in a way that people are saying no to you, or that it's informing the way you say no to others? Because positioning comes more from what you say no to than what you say yes to. All right. Saying no. So a lot of this comes back to the passion thing, but I would just call this like messaging and tone. You might think of this as brand voice, right? Messaging and tone, brand voice. Have you figured out your brand messaging strategy? all of your copywriting, the way that you write captions, the headlines of your ads, whether they're paid or just headlines on a sales page. Are they hard hitting? Are they on brand? Have you figured out what your brand voice is? Is there a tone that you're striking? I want you to look at we always look at that stuff through a lot of different lenses, right? Like, is it converting? Is this getting attention? Is it the right font size? That's not what we're talking about here. In the context of today's conversation, we're talking about tone and messaging through the lens of point of view. So if I were to go to your website and just scroll through and look at just your headlines, would I be able to go, man, this person's got a really strong point of view, right? So yeah, it's a really good place. It's a really good litmus test. Or as Christina just said in the chat, it's a good audit point. Yeah, I love that. Well done. All right. And I know they come back to the thing we all love to hate is a clearly defined ICA, right? Everything in your business is going to be really hard unless you know exactly who your ideal client is, and your point of view is a major contributing factor to helping you define that. Okay. Who's your ideal client? Who's your ideal client? All right, let's pause. Anyone have questions about point of view? And maybe more specifically, here's what I'd love to ask. When you look at this list, when you look at the conversation we've been having so far in this session about point of view, is there anything popping up for you that's connected to your business that you feel like, man, I need to have a conversation about that. I need some coaching around that. I need some feedback on that. I need to better understand what my point of view is so that I can do this work that's starting to reveal itself to me, whatever that is. When you go back and watch your content, can you see yourself holding back? When you're doing an interview with someone, do you sense like, hey, I'm shrinking here, right? That is a sign that there is point of view that you're kind of holding back on, right? Yeah, and it can happen in the craziest of places. If you go back, I think I've talked to you guys about this before, but if you guys were to ever go back and watch footage from the archives from Story 2016, every single time I'm on stage, you hear my voice being small. You hear me like kind of shrinked in, and I'm like, hey guys, so I'm really sorry that I'm here. I'm even sorry that I have to be on stage, but I'm the guy, I'm the MC, and this is my conference, and I've got to introduce the next speaker really quick. And it feels like smart enough to like actually really intentionally designed all this programming. So I want to kind of keep you in on the journey of where we're going next. But I promise I'll say this as fast as I can and get out of the way because I know I'm not the person you're here to hear from, right? That was me playing small. And yet, ironically, I had a very strong point of view. And that point of view was the magic behind all the programming. But I was playing small and not sharing it. And the reason I didn't want to share it is because I was concerned about being liked. I had an addiction to approval. There's a whole litany of reasons why I was playing small and not putting it on display. But it was obvious to me. So I can relate to what you're talking about, Sherry, because when I go back and look at those videos, I'm just like, oh my gosh, right? Compared to now, it's like, hey guys, welcome to Story. This is my thing. We worked really hard on dreaming this up, and a whole bunch of people made it possible. But there is ownership of the stage that wasn't there before. And I've got some strong opinions about our theme this year, and I'm going to share them sometimes even more strongly than the speakers that you're here to see and hear, right? So that very big difference, but that shift is key. That shift is key. And I want to see you make that. I want to see everybody else make that. So when you see it popping up and you have that awareness, do something about it. Do something about it. Hey, let's jump into a couple of these. Some of these will be a little bit easier and a little bit more tactical and practical for you. When it comes to proof, some of the obvious ones, they're exactly what you'd be thinking of. Testimonials. And while this may be simple and obvious, a lot of you are sort of underestimating or undervaluing this, or you get busy. If you're like me, you get busy and you're just like, I've not valued this properly. I remember, I think it might have been Jen the other day who was just like, hey, it's been like, who asked me on a question on the call today? I was like, I think it's like been like 6 months. Is it inappropriate for me to go back to them? Actually, it was Val, I think. Is it inappropriate for me to go back to them 6 months later and ask for a testimonial? We gave her a way of doing that, but is that the ideal? The ideal is like a walk off stage and they're like, oh my gosh, like you are the best speaker we've ever had. I am not exaggerating, you all. I can think of probably a dozen times where I've heard someone say something that dramatic and I literally say, that was amazing. Can I put that on my website? Right. And I kind of say it tongue in cheek, but they're like, well, yeah, of course. I'm like, cool. And then I'll email them later. It's like, hey, when I walked off stage, I know I was just kind of joking around with you. But I was like, can I put that on my website? But the more I thought about it, it's like, that was a very kind thing to say. Would you be willing to give me a testimonial? Here's kind of what you said. Do you want me to edit it? Do you want to tweak or add or take away anything? Right? We've got to get in the habit, and I'm guilty of this, but we've got to get in the habit of capturing testimonials. You've got to use them. If you want brand authority, you've got to capture them. You got to use them. Make this a habit. Make it a habit. There are ways of doing this. If you need help with it, let us know. This is not a testimonial, like how to get a testimonial work session. This is let's put testimonials back on your radar, help you understand it's an important part of this. Another kind of like different form of a testimonial is a case study. All right. We're guilty of this too. We get so busy trying to serve people that sometimes we forget to go back and highlight and interview the ways in which that we have helped them win. And so we don't capture that. We love doing case study interviews. We're trying to make more time for them, and they are powerful. They're so powerful. And a case study is great for a coaching program, but it's also totally cool for a keynote. A lot of keynote speakers, they start getting better at getting that 1 or 2 or 3 sentence testimonial, but they don't get the full case study story of, hey, before we worked with this person, we were at this event, and every other time this happened. A case study, it captures a little bit more of the old story and the new story, where a testimonial just says, this person's awesome. Both are similar forms of proof, but you need both of them if you want to fill all the gaps on this. And so if I were in your shoes, I would be asking myself, how can I gather testimonials? And how can I create some case studies around my clients? And if you do, you're going to win. Another way that we work in proof is through our resume, right? A lot of times this is simply your about page. A lot of you are like, I'm not looking for a job. Why would I have a resume? You don't need a resume because you're not trying to get employed. Sometimes it's just your about page. How can you take some of the proof that says this person's trustworthy and great and work that in, communicate it to people? My book hit the bestseller list. You better believe I'm going to talk about the fact that I'm a best-selling author. That's now a part of my resume. And so I work that in whenever I can, right? Really important stuff because that provides trust. It provides proof, okay? Another proof is your actual client list. When you go to the Story website and you see a little bar of logos that says attended by leaders from, and then you see Apple and Google and Disney and Nike and IBM and all these crazy companies. That's me going, hey, we're taking our client and customer list, we're putting it on display for you. When you go to harristhird.com and you see a bar of logos that says trusted by leaders at, and it says NASA and Disney, all those, a lot of similar companies, right? What is that? That's me taking my client list, putting it on display in a visual form, because my client list provides social proof. That proof gives me brand authority. Brand authority makes my business grow and makes my life easier for all the reasons we've been talking about. Okay. All right. Last but not least, I just want you to think of this one, and that is metrics. When we think of social proof, it's easy to think, oh yeah, testimonials. But as you can see, there's a longer list here of things that you guys have to work with. What do I mean by metrics? Metrics is when someone walks on stage and says, hey, our special guest today is a master illusionist. He has won many awards from his career as a magician. He's also performed in over 40 countries for over 2 million people scattered across 6 different continents. What? 2 million people live in 40 countries on 6 continents? That's crazy. What am I doing? I'm taking some metrics, some ways of measuring something, displaying them for people in a way that provides proof. The byproduct of that proof is authority. Okay. All right. So testimonials, make a to-do list out of this. Make this session actionable. Please don't sit here and just think, oh yeah, I need to do some of this stuff. Make this stuff actionable. What's on this list that's low-hanging fruit for you that you need to get better at? Tell me in the chat. Is it testimonials? Maybe you need to go create a couple of case studies. Do you need to re-up your about page? Work on your resume? Are you like, man, I've done some cool stuff with some clients lately. I need to put that more on display. How are you going to do that? Are there some cool metrics, some stuff that I've done and measured that I can put more on display? Maybe it's all 5. Maybe it's 2. But let's take this and make it productive. Where are you lagging in this area? What part of your business needs some work? Yeah. While you're putting stuff into the chat, we'll circle back to that in a second. So think of a testimonial as a stamp of approval. Leo is awesome. Here's a couple sentences why he's awesome. A case study showcases and tells the story of transformation. Hey, before we were here and now we are here, right? I just did a case study interview the other day with Leanne. her case study interview was basically like, yeah, when I came to you, I knew there was more, but I was pretty content and happy, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And this sounded risky, but I gave it a shot. Now, where is she? Oh, I launched this new thing. I'm experiencing a dream. I'm stepping into a story filled with stuff that I didn't even realize was possible. I'm the happiest I've ever been, right? A testimonial says, Harris is awesome. I love that he's my coach, dash Leanne. A case study is us unpacking, here's where Leanne was before, here's where she is now, here are the things that we did to get her from this old story into this new one. You see the difference? So I see, at least in our coaching work, I see case studies as twofold. One, they help us generate social proof for others. Two, they provide inspiration and wisdom because they're seeing themselves in other people's stories, right? There's a whole bunch of people that are going to identify with Leanne. When we release that video or send an email, it's like, hey, check out Leanne's story. That video, it's going to be uncut. We don't try to manipulate them or change the story or make it all about us. When we put it out, there's a bunch of people that go, oh, this isn't just social proof. This doesn't just help me trust Harris. It was so helpful to me to identify with Leanne's story and hear what she was struggling with before and the things that she did, the steps that she took to step into this new chapter of her story, right? And so, one, if you've had that kind of impact, if you're going to have a good case study, that means you've had good impact. That transformation exists and people are going to be willing. With that willingness, you add in some strategy of not just, hey, can I get a testimonial from you? Can we take the story of this impact and share it with others so other people can learn what you've done? All right. Angie, can you read out some of the chat?
Totally. I do want to just say one more quick thing though on testimonials, because I've done tons of testimonial interviews. Like when I worked for Porterfield, that was a part of my job. So I just interviewed people all day long. But case studies are super powerful when it is less about your work actually and more about their journey and their experience. Because the reason that case studies are so powerful, like Harris was talking about, is it's that storytelling piece. And it's more about how would these people describe themselves before going through or before working with you? And then how would they describe themselves after? And it's kind of that transformation piece that you want for case studies. It's not about, oh my gosh, Leo's so great. He had all that great knowledge. He had all this great thing. That's not really what a case study is for. That's a great testimonial line, like a couple sentences for a sales page or a speaking page. But what you really want your case studies to be is about the person that you're interviewing. And so be really intentional with the questions that you're asking, and then also understand to ask the question behind the question. There's several really great trainings on testimonials that I know that there's also in the vault as well. But I do feel like asking the right questions in case studies is really beneficial, and understanding that ultimate goal of what you're trying to get to. You're trying to learn about their story, not about their experience necessarily with you or trying to get accolades about you. So that's just food for thought, because the strongest case studies will be about their experience. So
yeah, just to comment on that for a second, I back in December did a case study interview with Diana. You guys know Diana was going through some sales challenges. We got those worked out. She had one of her biggest financial quarters that she'd ever had. And hopefully she doesn't mind me saying this, but I jumped on, and the whole time she was graciously helpful. She's like, okay, what would you like for me to say? I'm like, this is not really a testimonial, it's a case study. Yeah, but how do you want me to frame this in a way that would be most helpful to you? And I had to keep going, that's not what this is about. This is about your story. So just tell us what happened, right? And I've got some questions for you and got it along the way. And so to your point, if you want to know how to do that, there is a training in the vault with the exact questions and script. We did a whole Friday work session on how to do a case study interview. And if you're wondering, like, do I do testimonials? Do I need some case studies? While you need both, if you lead with gathering case studies by way of doing case study interviews the way we teach them, you will end up with a case study, and you can also pull out testimonials that you can use in other places and kill two birds with one stone. Okay. All right. On that note, jump into the chat for me, Angie. Tell me what are people going to work on? What's on their to-do list?
So they're talking a lot about case studies versus testimonials. I think there's a lot of really great feedback on that. Good takeaways. Christina said, I think here it's remembering that case studies aren't necessarily about us. It's a case study is the lessons and values, which is huge. Sally Z said, I've had incredible response when I share my speaker stories on Instagram. I treat it as a case study, and it's helped people recognize themselves in my business. And that is huge. That's going to be so much more powerful than if Sally is just posting a bunch of, quotes about that people have said about her on Instagram. People don't really care about that. you want to think of your case study as when you're the person on the other end of reading that, what's in it for them? Like, why do they care about this case study? How can they see themselves in that case study, which will then pull the trigger for them to want to work with you? So just kind of thinking about like, what's on the other, who's that viewer, who's watching that, or who's reading it, and how can you speak to them? And it's through storytelling.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Let me give you one more example. Here's the difference, guys, if this just gives you a really practical use. If I go to my website and I go to corporate events, let me give us a chance to find this, and I'll show you kind of exactly what I'm talking about. All right, this is how I would use a testimonial, right? I'm just going to drop it into a page. Harris was great, absolutely phenomenal. I was blown away. I don't have an exact count. I have booked $10, $15, $20,000 corporate events just because they saw a quote from John Maxwell on my website. Okay. So I just drop it in. If I go back to my homepage, Don Hahn quote. Here's a quote from Don Hahn. This is an example of a testimonial. I save these from our website. I drop them into the checkout process. I kind of drop them in as these little breadcrumbs when anyone needs like a little bit more proof to believe that they're taking the right step, right? A different use, case studies on the other hand, hey, here's how to prep for your strategy session coming up with Harris, right? Now someone's in a sales process. Hey, here's some videos, right? These are dropped in here. These tell the story of someone else. But notice these are not, I didn't put a testimonial here from Dave. This isn't a testimonial of Dave saying, Harris is awesome, you should hire him. It's how to 4x your revenue while working less, which was the heart of Dave's story when we interviewed him, right? So slight difference between testimonials and case studies. Same thing, different uses at different stages in the journey. Cool. All right, I want to get through all four of these. Permission to move forward. Everyone clear? They've got some stuff to work on in this area. All right, cool. Angie, anything I've missed from the chat? Okay,
Doesn't look
Alex,
like it.
I was just scrolling through. Alex, you had a question about the difference. Did we answer that question by now? Difference between testimonials and case study? Cool. All right, so let's go back to the worksheet for a second and take a look at these last two boxes. What is excellence? Excellence, I know, sounds self-explanatory. Let me go back to this because I want to say this to you clearly again. If you have not memorized this yet, I want you to memorize this. It should be a mantra for you. It's something that you need to remember for the rest of your life. Marketing is a battle of perceptions. It is not he who has the best product or she who has the best product that wins. It is he or she who tells the best story. Stories are not just words. Stories are everything. A photo tells a story. The color on your wall tells a story. The background behind each of you right now on Zoom tells a story. Everything is storytelling, which means if he or she who tells the best story wins, what are the things that are telling a story to people? And in the context of this conversation, it is about, are people experiencing excellence? Because your excellence tells a story, and all of the ways that you fall short of excellence tells a story. Okay. So what story are you telling? It's got to be one of excellence. And so how do we tell a story of excellence for the sake of building authority? I would say there's some simple things. Again, they're just kind of like the proof category. They may seem obvious, but it might bring up some projects for you. I would say brand visuals. I want to be really careful here. Otherwise, I can get on a soapbox. A brand is not a logo. A brand is a story. Your brand is the story that people tell themselves about who you are. A really powerful brand that's doing wonder work in the world is not just a story that people tell themselves about who they are. It's a brand story that changes the story people tell themselves about who they are, right? I don't want my brand story to be a story that you tell yourself about me alone. I want my brand to be a story that changes the story you tell yourself about who you are. Okay. So a brand is not a logo. A brand is not just your photo. A brand is not just your website. A brand is a story. So I'm talking about your brand visuals. Your brand visuals. What do they look like? Are they excellent? If they are not, what story is that telling people about you? Okay, let's look at another one. Photography. When I see a photo of you, what story does it tell? And does it communicate excellence? Now, what I'm not saying is, well, don't ever post an iPhone selfie in your Instagram feed. Okay. The quality of the photo or the resolution, whether you took it as a selfie or by a professional photographer, is not what determines excellence. Is the right story being told at the right time. Okay. So what is your photography saying? And let me give you a specific example. If I scroll through your website and I see photography that is very clearly stuff that looks like cheap stock photography, what story does that tell me? Tells me you must not be successful, or if you could, you'd be able to afford some better photos, right? This is where it starts to get really real for some of us, right? The look and feel of your content. Look, I love that Canva exists. I love that Canva has made design accessible by everyone, and that we no longer have to be a Photoshop expert in order to create our own content. But with the fact that everyone has a camera in their pocket, with the fact that everyone has design tools that are free on the internet, with the fact that we can all now just do it on our own, has come an avalanche of stuff that isn't up to par. It is not excellent. Now, there are different standards of excellence. We could have a long, deep conversation around what market are you in? What's your niche? Who's your ICA? And what do they demand? We talked about that. My Instagram following, it's got a bunch of teenagers that saw me perform a magic show that are now probably college students or adults. But my Instagram following also consists of some Disney Imagineers and 2 creative directors from Apple and a bunch of creative executives at really big, successful brands. So when I create content, it has to look and feel a certain way. And if I dip below that excellence, it has to be intentional. It's still excellent. It's just homemade. It doesn't feel cheap. It just feels real and authentic. So what I'm not saying is I can't ever post a photo to my Instagram feed that wasn't taken by a professional photographer. I can totally post a selfie. But where it matters, does the look of my content look the way that it needs to look? Which includes not just content, but all of my online presence, right? All of my online presence. And then the obvious one here is the quality of your product. What is your product? Is it a magic show? Is it a keynote? Is it a coaching session? Is it 10 minutes on TV? Is it a membership experience? Is it a co-working space? Is it an innovation workshop? What's the product? Is it excellent? And if it's not excellent, I can't help you guys if we're delivering low quality products. So let's start from the assumption that you're delivering a high quality product. If your product is excellent, what is it about everything else that you have online that allows it to be perceived as something less than excellent? Less than excellent. Yeah. Okay. I hope this is self-explanatory. The problem is this is also really relative and can be well, how do I know? And this is also an area that a lot of us have blind spots in from time to time. And so the most powerful way to assure that you are achieving this excellence is to do what a lot of you are doing. Christina just modeled it beautifully in the Facebook group. Hey, working on this thing on my website. Can someone take a look at it? What is that her doing? That's her maximizing the value of being a part of this group and saying, hey, I'm willing to be told if there are any blind spots here. How does this look? That's the best way to do it. So if you are ever in doubt or you just want a confidence check, just ask, okay? Ask and say, I need you to be brutally honest with me. Is this up to par for my ICA? Am I delivering excellence in this area? Now let's look at this through the opposite lens. What happens if your stuff is not excellent, but your product is? What does that do to your brand authority? Has anybody ever been to an awful website? Anyone ever experienced bad design via Canva in your Instagram feed? Yeah. Has anyone ever been on LinkedIn and you're scrolling through and it's like someone you follow, their content always feels a little bit homemade? And what perception does that create if marketing is a battle of perceptions? I bet Alex can tell you this, but when I walk around at a magic conference, I'm not making this up. When I walk around a magic conference, every now and then, like a mutual friend will introduce me to one of their friends. Like, oh, hey, have you met Harris? He lives in Nashville. Hey, this is my friend. He's a magician. He's in Chicago. He does fill in the blank, whatever niche market. I'm not making this up. So many times people have gone, actually, I know you. I've been to your website. You're the guy that has the really awesome website. I'm like, are you serious? I've heard that so many times. And a lot of times in the magic industry, people know of each other based on, well, gosh, that person has really awesome promo. That person's got a really sick promo video. That person's got a really awesome website. It's because it's an industry filled with do-it-yourselfers, right? And the scarcity mentality leads to this cheap mindset. It's like, I'll just design my own website. When you're designing your own website, you go, well, I want to make it look like this guy's. I want it to make it look like hers, right? And so for a long time in my industry, I was one of the guys with a really awesome website. That's okay, but what were they perceiving? This guy is getting opportunities that I don't have. He has authority that doesn't exist for me. Why? Just because my website looked better. So if marketing is a battle of perceptions, make sure you're being perceived with excellence. Make sure that the quality of the way you are representing your product aligns with the actual quality of your product. All right. I don't want to get stuck here too long, but are there any questions about this? All right. If there aren't any questions, I want you to pick one of these things or some of these things. Is there anything that needs to be audited? Is there anything that needs to go on your to-do list? What do you need to work on? If there's something on your list that needs some attention, drop it into the chat. I already saw one from Sally. Right now, my website is not up to par. Yeah, not up to par. So what's she going to do? She's going to get it up to par, right? Maybe that's you. Maybe that's you. New one coming this month. Awesome. I want to be very clear here. What I'm not saying is never do it yourself. There are totally opportunities for us to do stuff ourselves if you are good at it. If you are good at it. And there are also opportunities to hire someone to do something for you that doesn't cost a gazillion dollars. Some of you are spending 3 hours every single week to keep yourself from spending $300 on a brand new website. You are paying yourself 20 cents an hour over the course of the year to design a website because it's taking you so long and still ending up with a low quality product. Just spend the money. Spend the money. And the reason why you can afford to spend the money is because in your mind, you might think, I don't have it. It's because I know and see that it's costing you. It's already costing you. You already are. You're just not seeing it add up. Yeah. All right. Excellence is great. But one of the things I've appreciated about Harris's perspective is not hides behind the polish. Yes, that's an important distinction because we won't be perceived authentic if we're hiding behind the polish. 100%. So important to point out, right? I hope that you guys experience authenticity from me. There are times where it's messy and sloppy. You got to know when the right time to do that is. But if you go to the website, if you watch the video, if you dig through the content, you see stuff that enables other people to not take away the brand authority that they give me as a result of seeing the clear, authentic stuff, right? And I would say that's actually the difference. This goes back to the high-level brand authority conversation. When you have brand authority, it enables you to walk into a room with fluorescent lights and folding chairs and a cheap projector and give a presentation because the people in the room trust your brand authority, and that particular experience is not changing the narrative for them. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I can be in that scenario because of authority without it taking the agency over the storytelling. That's why it's so important. All right, cool. Definitely thinking about needing to budget and invest in more excellent materials and brand visuals. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a lot. We got to invest in the right areas. The other mistake people make here is they invest in excellence without the other things. So it's like, okay, I'm going to go take this money and I'm going to give it to a web designer instead of spending on this. But are you also giving attention to the copywriting that's going on that page? So what you don't need to hear about right now is spend money here instead of here. It's how do I ensure everything's leveled up so I can achieve excellence? And if you need insight and support in some of those areas, you've got to give resources towards that too. So it's not either or, it's both and. All right, real quick, expertise. How do we do expertise? As we talked about earlier, part of it is saying no. Some of it comes down to a niche market, but I would even say in this case, it's less about a niche market and more about having a niche focus. Okay. Having a niche market might have more to do with your point of view, right? Who is this for? Who's the person that I'm for in the world? Leveraging expertise to build brand authority in the world is about having a niche focus. A lot of people think niching down is all about the market itself, but you can niche in more than one way. I can say I help every business owner on the planet, and that doesn't sound like a very strong niche. But if I niche down on focus or expertise, I can say I work with any business owner, but what we do is we help sales teams increase their conversion rate from below 50% to above 50% through a proven sales strategy. Okay, so now I'm the niche sales guy, but I work with any business owner. I might say, well, I don't want to niche down based on expertise. I want to niche down on market. I no longer have to be the sales guy. I can be what hopefully we are to you. I can say, hey, we're focused on this little niche of solopreneurs, entrepreneurs that are doing creative storytelling in the world to help them level their business up from this to this. But we're going to have to talk about sales and marketing. And we're going to bring in a therapist for our summer retreat because it's a lot of mindset stuff. And we're going to make sure their ICA is dialed in. We're going to help them craft a manifesto. It's more comprehensive, but the ICA is dialed in and more niche. So you can get expertise by having niche focus. I am the wonder guy. I can tell you guys confidently there's not another magician on planet Earth talking about positive awe states and how they relate to the stories they tell themselves. And if they are not doing it the way that I'm doing it. Okay, that is me dialing in some expertise and trimming everything else out. So if you come to me and you're like, can you talk about the magic of customer service? Nope. It's not my expertise. Can you talk about the magic of like leading an organization and getting rid of conflict on teams? Nope. Just because you found a little magic angle and your theme is the magic of winning teams for your conference, I'm still not your speaker. There's another guy for that, unless it connects back to the role that wonder plays in changing the story you tell yourself, right? So niche focus. Another way to get expertise is a shorter, let's just call it this way, a shorter menu. What do I mean by a shorter menu? If you've got the Cheesecake Factory menu of offerings, what it communicates is I don't have specific expertise, is that I can do all the things, right? I can do all the things. So how do we dial in? So if you're like, I've got a course, I've got a coaching program, I actually have 5 different courses and 2 coaching programs. And I also have 17 different keynotes. These are all the things I've ever spoken about, right? What is that? You're all over the place. It's Cheesecake Factory. Dial it in, combine those 4 courses, make them all onboarding content for one single coaching program, right? You got to get great at this before you develop and go out. Now, can you succeed being Cheesecake Factory? Apparently, it is very rare. Okay. So follow the rules before you break them. Yeah. All right. So shorter menu. We talked earlier about kind of the way that happens is the magician for all occasions. I would say that's not a new one. It's all encompassing of all this stuff, right? And once again, I just want to highlight this one. What are you saying no to? What are you saying no to? All right. This, my friends, is how you build brand authority. Strong point of view, backed up with proof, represented by excellence, based on strong expertise. Strong expertise, right? If you do all these things, you will have strong positioning, a litmus test. We're not going to work on this today. We include this in a lot of our stuff. And some of you, when you see it, you're like, again? Because it's still hard for a lot of us, right? If you can't craft a positioning statement, it's just a little litmus test for you to ensure, okay, you haven't positioned properly yet. You got to know and get really clear on who you help, what problem you help them solve, what transformation you lead them through, and what you don't have to do in order to help them get there, right? So if you're just like, do I have clear positioning? I'm not sure. This is your test. Think of this as your test. Can I just be like, bloop, 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 drop all 4 things into those 4 lines? If so, you probably got a good head start on positioning. And then you just need to dial it in by way of this list, right? But if you're struggling to fill in these blanks, these 4 boxes are going to be real hard, okay? Because positioning is the foundation of those 4 pillars: strong point of view, proof to back it up, excellence, and expertise. And if you build those 4 pillars long-term and do business in the world and serve your clients and operate with integrity and trust, that will protect you from all the weather and the storms that come your way, to make sure those pillars stay standing strong. If you do so, the scales will start to tip in your favor. Hopefully you've got some homework. You have a to-do list. You've got some stuff that you can do to start building brand authority. I want to finish where we started and just remind you, this is the stuff that's easy to not do, right? Because this stuff, if you go decide, I want to level up my website, need more excellence. I'm going to go film another case study. I guess the case study thing, there's little things here that might get you clients in the short run. It's going to assist you in your short game. But for the most part, a lot of the stuff that we talked about is the stuff that affects you the long game. But you've got to make these plays now for your life and business to look different a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now. And because of the delayed gratification of this type of work, most people today aren't willing to do this type of work because they want the immediate hit of success, right? So you've got to make time for this. We shared it with this particular group because of those building blocks. When you're trying to figure out, how do I make my next $10,000 to pay a bill? It's hard to focus on building brand authority. You guys are all in this season where this is the stuff that you have to start caring about. Okay. You got to start caring about this stuff. All right. Let's finish by saying, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? What's been most helpful? What does this make possible for you? Even if you feel like you're saying the same thing again that you said earlier, I want you to leave this session from that place. What does this make possible for you? What's been most helpful or valuable? Drop something into the chat. We'll read some out. We'll wrap this one up. For me, this just confirms where I'm going. I'm in the right spot. Good, Jen. That's valuable. Keep laying that groundwork. This has been so good. I want to camp out on my message and point of view. Leanne, I would encourage you, go back. Actually, can I just share it with you right now? You have a point of view. I captured it during one of our first calls. I said, we need to identify your values and life principles and turn them into like everything about your signature offering. And you're like, oh, I probably know what those are. And we just started brainstorming. Leanne's like, I want to tell people to have a zeal and zest for life. Food without zest is flavorless and bland. So is the life that we live, right? Gratitude and thankfulness. Food equals provision and triggers gratitude as it meets a need and allows others to experience beauty, even visual beauty due to colors, etc. Think charcuterie. Gratitude and thankfulness, that's a part of your point of view. Joy and happiness, both biologically and the kind that food brings. A spirit of welcoming hospitality, which happens to happen best over food. There's an exchange of empathy and storytelling that happens over a meal and its ability to connect people. That's your point of view. That's the way that you see the world, and it's connected to your work. So you've already done the work. It's there. It's there. So hone it in, share it, inject it into everything that you do. It's so good. Christina, finding ways to get the content I've been sitting on and each pillar out publicly with excellence. Yes. I'm going to share my point of view more, says Leo. That's what we want from you, my friend. Let's see it. Let's see it. When and where? Drop that into the chat. I want you to make a commitment. Just choose the next spot you're going to share your point of view more. Love that. Confirmation on my existing to-do list, says Erica. I have no doubt it's always long for you. There always seems to be a to-do list that you're referencing. I'm seeing a theme here. Also planning to interview some case studies. Good. Hey, get them while they're hot, right? Those case studies, you're helping some women right now. They're still fresh into this transformation. They're still excited about it. So don't wait too long like we often do. Yeah. This is more of my area of expertise, working in marketing. But this was illuminating to remind myself that it's more important to do for myself. That it's important to do for myself. Yes. I also realized how frustrated I am with the stock images and photos, which is why I hardly ever use them. Will prioritize dusting off my camera to get more brand photos of strong women in my life to use in my marketing. Yeah. Hey, there's nothing wrong with stock photography. Just make sure it's good. If it looks like it's cheap and you don't want to be cheap, then we just have to align the storytelling, right? So just make sure it's the right image. It's not always about the price tag. Excellence doesn't always mean expensive. Let's be clear. Excellence doesn't always mean expensive. Sometimes it does, but not always. Charcuterie should be a point of view. Yeah. Wow, we said all that? No, we did not, Leanne. You said all that. I just typed it down. I just took notes while you were talking. That was you. Those were your words. All right. Sally says, leveraging my new website as an opportunity to checklist all this. Yeah, it's a great time to do that. If you're going through a website, it's a good time to just, I just realized I need some fresh testimonials. Oh, didn't realize I need a case study. So nothing like a website refresh will help you revisit a lot of this list. All right. Hey, friends, this has been awesome. Thanks for letting us share this with you. And I say that simply because anytime we talk about this, there's a little bit of insecurity that I have around, can I get them to care about this? Right? You guys would rather hear something about how do I get more clients by Monday? But I'm telling you, this is where it's at. This is where it's at. Tip the scales and life gets easier. Brand authority is huge. And part of the reason why some of the things that we do are easy, and then you try to do them exactly the way that we do, and they're hard. It's literally nothing different other than just some brand authority. That's it. So play the long game, build it, protect it with integrity and trust. The scales will tip and you will stop having to call as many people because they will start calling you. All right. Have a great weekend. We love you all. We will see you on Monday. Have fun. See ya. Bye-bye.